Good afternoon. Hurricane Sally made landfall, as you know, in Alabama and Florida last night as a Category 2 hurricane and has caused 35 inches of rainfall in some places. That's a lot. We have hundreds of FEMA, Coast Guard. We have the National Guard personnel on the ground assisting response to the efforts, and Alabama's in great shape, and every place that we are working with the state governments really in great shape. We are working very hard on that, but it looks like it's going to be mostly safe, but just follow the instructions of all of your local and federal people there. We have the best people that you can have. So I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody for working so hard in Florida. And they're very good at this. The people in Florida handle it. They know how to handle it. And the people working there know how to handle it. The governors have all been spoken to. And
I'm not used to all this stuff.
It's a combination of real spirit
and be president, and I don't know how to
yeah,
handle
they have a
emergencies.
tremendous esprit de corps. They have a tremendous sense of working on hurricanes. They've gotten very good at it. And we've certainly had plenty. Even since I've been here, we've had a lot of them. So that's in good shape, Hurricane Sally. We're going to talk about Big Ten football, but that's a terrific thing. We'll discuss that at the end. I just want to go into the vaccine distribution. Today, my administration released our detailed national vaccine distribution plan.
Ridiculous.
And that includes a plan to ensure that we swiftly deliver the vaccine directly to America's senior citizens in nursing homes, and it's all set. We have our military lined up. Everybody's lined up. And we think that's going to go very nicely. We're very close to that vaccine, as you know. And I think closer than most people want to say, or certainly closer than most people understand. To get the vaccine into the hands of American people, we're fully mobilizing the awesome power of American industry and also our military. This is the largest, fastest, and most advanced vaccine distribution effort in American history by far. I was reading where Biden was saying that, he's going to have a plan. They did so bad on swine flu, you wouldn't even believe it. Take a look at their record on swine flu. In fact, the person that headed it up said it was a total disaster.
I'm sure that would bite you in the ass.
We're on track to deliver and distribute the vaccine in a very, very safe and effective manner. We think we can start sometime in October. So as soon as it is announced, we'll be able to start. That'll be from mid-October on. Maybe a little bit later than that, but we'll be all set. So as soon as it's given the go-ahead, they're doing trials, as you know, and as soon as it's given the go-ahead, we will get it out, defeat the virus. We've manufactured all of the necessary supplies so that as soon as the FDA approves the vaccine, and as you know, we're very close to that, we'll be able to distribute at least 100 million vaccine doses by the end of 2020, and
are you going to have 100 million
a large
vaccine
number much
doses?
Sooner than that.
According to some of the experts, you're going to
I'm
need
calling
2
on
doses, not just one. So that's
Biden to stop
50 million
promoting his
vaccines.
anti-vaccine theories, because all they're doing is hurting the importance of what we're doing. And I know that if they were in this position, they'd be saying how wonderful it is. They're recklessly endangering lives. You can't do that.
They are.
And again, this is really a case that they're only talking. Just started talking a little bit negatively, and that's only because they know we have it.
Played it, whatever that means.
Or we will soon have it.
Threat.
And
Tens
the
of
answer to
thousands
that
of
is
Americans
very soon.
died because of your recklessness.
Case updates. It's very interesting to see what's happening because the test positivity rate is down among all age groups and has fallen below 5% for the first time since this whole nightmare of the China virus began.
Dang racism.
Fallen below
By the time I actually
5%.
implement that, it'll
The
be
number of
hopefully it'll be gone.
hospitalized patients has decreased by 43% from mid-July. 43%.
Racism
Nationally,
counter. Ding,
people
ding, ding.
sick with the China
Pass the
virus
buck counters.
now
Those
make up
counters
only
all bottom. Pass the
1.5%
buck. Ding.
of all
Racism.
emergency
Ding.
room visits. So we're down to the lowest number we've had. 1.5% of emergency room visits is for the China virus. And thanks to our life-saving therapies and treatments, I think this is the best of all in terms of our great percentages and all the progress
Our
we've made.
percentages are the best,
fatality
except
rate
they're
has
not.
fallen 85% since April. 85% fatality rate. If you look at what we've done, and all of the lives that we've saved, and I'm going to ask that a
Fatality rate is
graph
stated by
be
your
put up,
administration
and
was
now it's up.
3% earlier. So 85%
This was right
is
at the
almost.
beginning. This was our prediction that if we do a really good job, we'll be at about 100,000 to
I doubt that he even
240,000
understands
deaths.
that.
And we're below that substantially, and we'll see where it comes out. But that would be if we did the good job. If
Where's
the
the
not so
curve
good
that
job
says
was
what would have
done,
happened
would
had
be
you not
between
downplayed it?
1.5 million. I
Would have been
remember
much
these
more
numbers
flat.
so well, and 2.2 million. That's quite a difference.
Pandemic
So
outbreak
we're down
with no
in
downplaying
this
could be the
territory.
other curve. Somebody needs to
And
make
that's
that.
despite the fact that the blue states had tremendous death rates. If you take the blue states out,
Copy
we're
that. We're gonna make we're
at a
gonna do
level
something
that,
with that later.
I don't think anybody in the world would be at. We're really at a very low level, but some of the states, they were blue states and blue state managed. And by the way, we would recommend they open up their states. I think it's very important that they open up their states
It's not a point. More
because if
people are
you
going to
look
die
at certain
if
of
we-
them,
if they
North
open up the
Carolina,
states.
Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, we have to get those states open. It's hurting people. It's hurting people far more than the disease itself.
No, it's not.
So we would recommend that you open them, let your people have freedom. And it's unfair to your people to keep them closed
People.
at this stage. We know the vaccine. We know the vaccines
You
are
can't-
coming, but we know the
Let's
problem.
open up
We
before the
understand
vaccine
who the
hits.
vulnerable are.
That's
which
what you
is
wanted. That's ridiculous.
primarily people with
How dumb are you,
medical
and how dumb are
problems,
the
but
people
in
voting for you?
particular, people with medical problems that are older. So open up your states to facilitate
week is gonna
routine
be a
testing
long
of the
week. I say
nursing home
election week, and
residents
maybe
and
even
staff.
more
We've
because
delivered
of all the
rapid
absentee ballots
testing
that have to be counted. We
devices
probably
to
won't know the
all
winner
1,000,
on election
or
night
excuse me,
unless enough people
13,850
come out
certified
and
nursing
say,
homes
"Look,
nationwide.
Screw Donald Trump.
So you
This
have
is ridiculous."
13,850 certified nursing homes nationwide, and they are being facilitated in terms of testing and testing apparatus. Everything is there. We also have new tests coming, and we have one in particular that I think I showed last night, which is literally two pieces of very fine cardboard. It's actually a lot of delicate things going on inside that cardboard, but it's an incredible test. It's very quick, it's very accurate, and moves along rapidly. We've bought millions of those tests, and they're going to be distributed rapidly. So the testing process, where there's nobody in the world that has a testing process like ours, in addition to being number one, number two, which is India, is close to 50 million tests behind us, I believe, Scott. 50
And you're still
million
not
at
testing
1.5
enough.
billion people. Tomorrow, Vice President Pence will be
Tiny
announcing
little
the
brain
findings
can't
of the Nursing
comprehend
Home
that.
Commission to continue protecting our most vulnerable, which is our senior citizens, and we're going to take good care of them. I want to congratulate Big Ten football. It's back, and I want to, in particular,
Let's
I've been
congratulate
dealing
them,
with them.
even though the fact that
Thank
athletes are
Commissioner
shown
Kevin Warren
a large chunk
for
of
the
the
great
athletes
job
who
he did.
caught
We've been working with
COVID-19
him
have shown to have
for a while. There was a rumor being spread that I didn't want football back, and it was just the
something or other.
opposite. That was another disinformation rumor put out by the Biden campaign.
cardiomyopathy.
And it was just the opposite, but it really spurred me
I'm not a
into
doctor.
action. I called the commissioner a couple of weeks ago, and we started really putting a lot of pressure on, frankly, because there was no reason for it not to come back. And
There is a reason
Kevin,
for
when,
it.
I want to thank the players, the coaches for working along, and they wanted it very badly. The players and coaches in particular, the parents also. And Big Ten football just announced, as you know, that their schedule, they
Evidence of
announced the schedule,
myocarditis,
and it's going to be great,
15%
important to have.
of
I want to
college
recommend that the
athletes who were
Pac-12 also
tested
get
after
going,
having
because
COVID,
there's no reason why
30% had cellular damage or
Pac-12
swelling
shouldn't be
that could
playing
not be
now.
linked definitively to
And
the condition.
perhaps they'll start with, at least partially, I had recommended today to Kevin and others that maybe you want to start off with 25% of the stadium, or maybe you want to start off with empty. I don't know. If it's, I think they could have fans go, frankly, but
I mean,
they want to be careful. They want to be safe, and they will be safe. They've
they're
got
not
a
gonna,
very
it's not safe.
good testing process for the
You have
players,
fans going to the
coaches,
stadium.
families,
I could,
etc.
you know, NFL
And
is
so I just want to congratulate Big
doing
Ten.
football.
It's going to be great. We're going to
There's
love
still a
watching
lot of
that.
people on the
And
field, but with
again, I want
nobody
to recommend
going
Pac-12.
to these
You're the
games,
only
at least
one
some
now.
games.
Open
Nobody
up.
went to the game this week in New
Open
Orleans
up,
'cause we're in
Pac-12.
stage
Get
2.
going.
Shout out
Said
to
the same thing to Big
Mayor
Ten, and they
Cantrell.
did. And now I'm saying it to Pac-12. You have time. You really have time right now. Get going. I want to thank all of those wonderful coaches, some of whom I spoke with. And we went through a process over the last couple of weeks, and I want to thank Congressman Anthony Gonzalez of Ohio, who, as you know, was a great football player. Some people know that. I know that. But Anthony was a great player, great receiver, went to the NFL. Also, I want to thank Tim Pataki of my staff. He worked very hard on this, and he was up day and night working with Kevin and everybody else. So I want to thank Tim Pataki. Great
Live
job.
streams of the
So
Democratic
Big Ten is
Convention.
back, and it's going to have hopefully a great season. The census recently
kids
found that in
and
the
ball.
second quarter of 2020, Hispanic Americans' home ownership reached a record all-time high. That's all-time in the history of our country.
What else does all
Yesterday,
time
the census
mean?
reported that median income for Americans increased
I mean, I
by
understand.
an
Maybe I have to
unprecedented
explain this for your
$4,400
dumb
last year
supporters who haven't
to a
realized they
record of
shouldn't be supporting you anymore.
$68,700. In 2019, income inequality fell for the second straight year. The income gap widened under the Obama-Biden administration, and it widened fairly substantially, and it narrowed under the Trump administration. So there's a little fact that you didn't know. So it narrowed under us, and it widened under Obama. Income grew more last year alone than over the entire 8 years of Obama-Biden. And that's a big statement, but that's the way it is. In 2019, 4.2 million Americans were lifted out of poverty. That's the largest poverty reduction under any president in history. 4.2 million Americans were lifted out of poverty. The Hispanic American poverty rate reached the lowest level ever, history of our country.
Here he goes.
Hispanic
pandering.
American
He's
poverty
being a
rate,
panda bear
lowest
to the
level ever.
Hispanic community
I
that he
created
should
the
not
greatest
win
and
because,
fairest
you know,
economy in history. The biggest gains went to
forced
lower income Americans.
hysterectomies.
As they measure that kind of thing, we will
Force
be back to full strength very
hysterectomies.
soon. We're going to have a fantastic year next year. It's looking like that. I think you're going to have an incredible third quarter.
Forced
The numbers are
hysterectomies.
looking very, very strong for the third
Repeat
quarter.
that
We have
again
numbers
for
that
anybody who
we're going
is
to put out
Hispanic
tomorrow. Some
heritage
of the individual
who needs
things.
to hear about this, who hasn't
car
heard about it
production,
yet.
housing
Forced
production, housing ownership. So many
hysterectomies
different things
in
are
ICE
just
detention
at
camps,
levels
i.e.
that nobody thought
concentration
possible
camps.
as
More
we
on that
round
on
the turn
tonight's
on the
podcast,
pandemic.
8 p.m. Central.
The
blogtalkradio.com/liberal Dan.
Police crusade from the Democrats and the radical left, and radical left Democrats also, has to stop.
Jail Chauvin's such a good
The
imitation
left
of him.
wing war on cops puts our officers in danger and our communities at very grave
Who does it
risk.
put in danger?
Can't
Say
do this.
officers again, please.
Biden described the police as the enemy. They're not the enemy. They're the friend. They're our friend. They're
There are
helping
some
us.
who are the
And if
enemy.
you go to
There are the people who
I just
shot
saw a poll
people in the back.
just came
Those are
out,
not
or
good
recently
cops. Those are
came out,
enemies. And then there's the people that
African
stand by and let it
Americans,
happen. They're not good cops
84% wanted more police. They wanted safe neighborhoods. In Phoenix last night, a federal officer was gunned down in a drive-by shooting. In L.A. this weekend, everybody saw that. This horrible human being, or whatever you
They
might
showed that
wanna
the
call
person who
him.
killed the cops, I think in
came-
L.A., was a white
They
supremacist.
were looking all
He was
over,
your
trying to find
supporter.
him.
He wasn't
find out.
Antifa.
We're
He
gonna
wasn't
get
Black
him.
Lives Matter supporter.
But
he was
in
one of yours.
LA this weekend, two sheriff's deputies were ambushed and viciously shot, and they can never be the same. They're getting better, but they can never be the same. I'll always stand by our heroes of law enforcement, and we want to stop this horrible rhetoric and stop it fast. I want to ask Scott Atlas to say a couple of words because I heard Biden talking today about he wants to come up with a distribution plan, a distribution for the vaccine that we came up with. A couple of
You
things.
didn't
We
come
came
up
up with
with
that
it.
vaccine. It'll be
Private
announced
industry is
fairly
coming
soon,
up with
but
it.
regardless, this month, next month, in a level
And
of time that
Joe
nobody thought
Biden,
was possible
when he becomes
because
president,
of what we did with our FDA in
knock on
terms
wood,
of streamlining.
will
I
have to
wanna
be the
thank-
person who is
thank Dr.
responsible for
Hahn.
distributing it. So it makes
But
sense
what
that he
we've
should
done
be able to
with
come
the
up with a
streamlining
distribution
has
plan
been
because
incredible
nobody trusts
and
that
very
your
safely.
distribution
Number
plan
one
will
is
be
safety,
valid
number two is
or
speed,
correct or in any
you
way
can have
capable.
perfect safety and
Because
have
you
much
have your
more
hands
speed,
on
and that's
it.
what we did. We did this for more
There's
than the
people who
vaccine
get the
having to do
vaccine
with
are
the
my
China
family
virus.
and
It's
friends,
also for
and then
other
all the
things.
Nazis who
so
love
many other
me.
great drugs are out there that would take 10, 12 years to get them approved, and we've moved those schedules up a lot. But if this were Obama, Biden, this would have taken 2-3 years before you were at a stage
Patently false.
where we are now
6
at.
months.
So we're
Swine
going to
flu.
be very soon, and it's
April
sort of
to
funny to
October.
watch Joe Biden getting up and reading a
You're a
teleprompter
liar.
and saying how
Lying
how he
liar
would
who
have,
lies. That's
done
what you
this.
are.
They had H1N1. He calls it the N1H1. It's H1N1. It's called the swine flu, and it was a disaster. And
6
as I said,
months.
the person that ran it for him said the worst things about it. I mean, just they didn't know what they were doing. They quit. They had no clue, and that was easy by comparison to this. There's the most contagious flu or virus that anybody's seen. This is unbelievable how contagious it is. You found that out. But I watched Biden quickly as he
Swine flu
discussed
pandemic.
without knowing a
Look up
thing about a distribution
the
plan.
number.
And he said that we don't have a distribution plan, but we do indeed. Our
How
military.
many swine flu cases? I
we
think
have
it may have been more
military, we
contagious,
have
but it was less
everybody
deadly.
involved. It's a great plan,
Less
and it's a
deadly.
plan like no other. And we can start doing it, I believe, the day that we come up with the vaccine. when it's,
60.8 million
done.
cases.
Start that same day or the day after.
12,000 deaths.
The military is very much
More
involved.
contagious, less
And they
deadly.
deploy troops. They
But
deploy,
you don't
these are the
understand that
generals
because you're a freaking
that
idiot.
do
You don't
logistics
understand
and
rates.
all of those
Conservatives
things.
don't
and we'll
understand
have
what
it
rates mean.
all over the country, and then ultimately, hopefully, we'll be helping the world with the vaccine, and it's very exciting. But maybe I'd ask Scott Atlas to come up and describe a little bit about the distribution plan in particular, because Biden acted as though there was no distribution plan, and we've been working on this for months, and it's ready, and Scott has really taken a hold of it and done an incredible job. And please, Scott, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. And I didn't develop the plan. I'm just relaying information here. But this is a plan that's a 57-page document that was sent to every state today. And there's a different part of this that was given to Congress today. It was released by HHS. It's on the website. And in fact, I thought it was covered actually by the media, so I don't think it's a surprise. But it's a comprehensive plan. It's a public-private partnership to get everything done in terms of logistics. The IT that's necessary to trace the first dose, because some of these vaccines are anticipated to be 2 doses. There's
Two doses,
tailoring,
as I
of
said.
course, by the states and their specifics, and there's an administration of the vaccine plan that will be done in over 51,000 outlets, including for particular attention to minority areas, over 14,000 federally
29th
qualified health
was the Times
centers.
article,
And
How
as
fast
the
could a
president
swine
just
flu
said, within the
vaccine
first
be- swine
24
flu
hours of FDA's
vaccine
approval under an
released.
emergency use, we will have vaccines being delivered within the first 24 hours. And it will be done at virtually no cost to Americans. And the terms of the dosage, there will be, is it anticipated that no later than January, all the top priority people will have received the vaccine or be able to receive the vaccine. And so that kind of prioritization, which is the general prioritization done for all vaccines that are developed, particularly in a pandemic setting, goes to the high-risk people, the people with other underlying conditions, as well as first responders and people working directly in healthcare. And so that's going to be done very rapidly. Okay.
Good,
Thank you.
very much. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. President, earlier
6
today,
months.
Dr. Redfield confirmed that it looked like November, December, the first doses would be able to be distributed. But then he said that the vaccine for the general public likely would not be available until probably next summer, maybe even early fall. Are you comfortable with that timeline?
No, I think he made a mistake when he said that. It's just incorrect
Of course you do,
information.
because you want to
And I
sugarcoat
called
everything.
him,
You want to give everybody
And
diabetes.
he didn't tell me that, and I think he got the message maybe confused. Maybe it was stated incorrectly. No, we're ready to go immediately as the vaccine is
You're not
announced.
ready to
and
go immediately.
It could be announced in October, could be announced a little bit after
Could be announced in October, could be after, but you're not
once
going to
we
have
go, we're
all
ready,
of them right away.
As you know, Pfizer's making this, they're taking a tremendous financial risk, and they're spending billions of dollars on actually making this vaccine. They're in a stage where they're actually making it because they feel very confident as to the results. They'll be announcing their results fairly soon. And no, that's incorrect information.
He was clear in the way he said
Yeah,
it.
well,
and
I
what he
think so,
said.
but I don't think he means that. I don't think when he said it,
I don't think he means what
I
he
believe
said.
he
It's
was
just like,
confused.
you know,
I'm just
I
telling you,
said
we're
that,
ready to go as
you
soon
know, I
as the
never
vaccine
kid.
happens.
So when do you want to
said
see
that
it
I'm gonna-
available? What would be a timeline?
I
that
would
you
Negotiate
say
their
that,
term.
yeah, we will start distributing it immediately
Not
to
just
the
the
general
virus.
public very shortly. Really to the general public immediately. When we go, we go. We're not looking
That's
to
not true.
say,
You're
gee, in 6
lying.
months we're going to start
You
giving
are
it to
a
the general public.
liar.
No, we want to go
Lying
immediately.
liar
No, it was an
who
incorrect
lies.
statement. I saw the statement. I called him. I said, what did you mean by that? And
FYFF.
I think he just made a mistake.
To cite
He
the
just
great
made a
Ashley
mistake. I think he
Morris, late
misunderstood the
great Ashley
question,
Morris.
probably.
So if you were to put a timeline on when every person in America will be able to get a vaccine, what would that date be?
I think it would be very soon. I think
What's
our
the
distribution
timeline? Say
process
it.
is going to go very quickly. I told you, we've engaged the military. We have a general who's in charge of all logistics.
You're not
who
answering the question.
Delivers soldiers. He's
But of course, he's going to
fantastic guy.
downplay.
He's supposed to be fantastic at what he does. And we figure that's better than any company you're going to hire. You can't hire a company like that. And we look to do distribution immediately after we get the word that it's good. And I think they're having tremendous success with the vaccine itself. I think the results will be early and strong. The safety has to be 100%, and we're going to insist on that. And obviously, the companies
Safety
are
is
going to
going to be
insist on that also.
Donald Trump wants safety to be 100%.
The actual date,
It's
but
not possible.
January, February, March?
Scott, what would you think?
Yeah, as I said, the high priority people will have
Sure.
in sometime no later than January. I mean, of course, it depends on when things are approved and the emergency
But what
use
about
is
the-
given.
I'm talking
I
about the low
understand,
priority people.
yeah, I can finish. And then it's anticipated there'll be 700 million doses by end of Q1. That's 700 million doses.
So by the end of March.
That's end of Q1.
Dr. Atlas, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Q1, he said.
Right.
And
That's
then
the end of March,
So
right?
next year, not this year.
It's one thing to have the doses, but we've talked to a lot of public health experts who say if this is happening in the winter and you have to socially distance, you can't have the packed lines that we saw during H1N1. You can't have packed auditoriums. You have to space it out. So that's one thing. Another thing they're worried about is storing these vaccines. And since we don't know which one is the winner, you know, doctors' offices may not have dry ice to handle negative 80 degrees. So these are challenges. Are you prepared to say that you can overcome all those in 3 months?
Yes, because at least I've been briefed on the vaccine, okay? And so all the refrigerators that are
Press secretary
necessary,
is
everything
looking
is
at
going
us
to be
like,
in place for this.
oh crap,
There's a
these are
very
questions
detailed
that we don't know
logistical
how the
plan
answer
that
to.
was started months ago. And, you know, you're welcome to read it on the web, but basically, yeah, all those things are not a problem really. I mean, if people know how to shop for groceries or go into a store or sit in the restaurants that are open and use social distancing, I think they can do it for vaccines too.
And you also have more than one company. You have Johnson & Johnson, you have Pfizer, you
But
have
who's to say all those
Moderna, you
companies
have
are gonna be
others.
successful
So we
in
could
developing a
conceivably have
vaccine.
vaccines being given out by numerous companies, and they're all world-class companies. They're fantastic companies. That could happen also. Okay? Yeah, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are you prepared to sign off on the Oracle and TikTok deal even though the Treasury isn't getting paid? And also, does the deal meet your requirements in terms of national security concerns?
Okay, they're giving me studies on the deal. Has to be 100% as far as national security is concerned. And no, I'm not prepared to sign off on anything. I have to see the deal. We need security, especially after what we've seen with respect to China and what's going on. We want security, so I'll let you know. They're going to be reporting to me tomorrow morning, and I will let you know.
What about the payment?
The-
What about the payment to the Treasury?
Liberal Day and Radio
Well,
on
we're gonna see
TikTok, ladies
about
and gentlemen.
that.
It may still happen.
Amazingly,
May
I
still be up
find
and
that you're
running.
not
You never
allowed to
know.
do that. You're not allowed
never
to accept
know.
money. So what kind of a thing is this? If they're willing to make big payments to the government, there's no way of doing that from there's no legal path to doing that. And I'm saying, wait a minute, they're willing to make a big payment to the government and we're not allowed to take the money? When does this happen? How foolish can we be? So we're looking into that right now. You understand that? In other words, I said, no, I want a big chunk of that money to go to the United States government because we made it possible. And the lawyers come back to me and they say, well, there's no way of doing that. You know why? Because nobody's ever heard of that before. Nobody's ever said that
Because
before.
you're
Nobody's
you're
ever said,
not a
well,
mob.
we'll
We're
approve
not
the
a
deal.
mob. We're
But
not
we
the
want a lot of money
mafia.
to go to the government because by approving the deal, we're making the deal valuable. They've never heard of that before. Okay? Can you believe that, right? Hard to believe. Yeah, please, go ahead.
quick follow-up on TikTok. You had said earlier that it was really important to you that a U.S. company buy TikTok, and according to the proposal submitted by ByteDance, ByteDance would keep a majority stake and Oracle would have a minority
Well, we're
stake.
gonna find out about that. We're looking into that from the standpoint of ByteDance. We don't like that. I mean, just conceptually, I can tell you I don't like that. That has not been told to me yet.
I don't like
That has
TikTok
been
because
reported, but
they
hasn't been
screwed
told
over
to
my
me. It
Tulsa
could be
rally,
very accurate
but they
reporting for a
probably
change.
saved many
So if
lives by
that's the
making
case,
it so
I'm
that
not gonna
less
be
people
happy
could
with
get
it.
in.
Assuming that ByteDance
The
is
people
China,
on
which I think
TikTok
it
probably
probably is.
saved
yeah.
more lives than
Yeah, in the
government.
back, please, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. President. Bill Barr told prosecutors that he wants to charge violent demonstrators with sedition. And you told Judge Janine that if there's violent demonstrations on election night, we'll put them down very quickly if they do that. Look, it's called an insurrection. So I'm wondering why you want to use that kind of rhetoric when there's such a
Well, the
volatile
question was
situation.
asked to me about if you have violent demonstrations. Yes, we will put it down very, very quickly if there is. Absolutely.
Are you making fun
And I
of
think the American public wants to see that. Yeah, OAN, please.
violence on
OAN,
election
yeah,
night?
please.
Thank you, Mr. President. With
No, just to
regards,
finish, look, if there's any kind of demonstration or violence, there will be nothing that interferes
Any kind of
with this
demonstration
project-
or
product.
violence, any
This-
kind of
this, vote.
demonstration.
There's gonna be nothing. The biggest problem we have right now are the ballots. Millions of ballots going out. That's the biggest problem. When you talk about other countries, whether it's China, Russia, or many others that get mentioned, they're in a much better position with these paper ballots to do something than they would ever be under the old system. And that's our biggest problem. Our biggest threat to this election is governors from opposing parties controlling ballots, millions of ballots. To me, that's a much bigger threat than foreign countries, because much of the stuff coming out about foreign countries turned out to be untrue. What is true is that many elections have taken place over the last year and a half using this ballot system. They've been off by 5%, 10%, 15%. I think I read one at 40%, 40%. And these are small, easy to control elections. This whole ballot system where you can send it in and it's not even requested. We're not talking about it
You are doing the
solicited.
same thing.
They're unsolicited ballots and they're sent in is very dangerous for our country. And you know who knows that better than anybody? The Democrats. Look at what happened in Manhattan where they had this kind of an election.
There we go.
And it was so fraudulent that it should never have been allowed to be called. We could have 5, 10, 15, 20% off. We could have more than that. The ballots will be stolen. Who knows where they're going? Who knows where they're coming from?
Do you see a federal
It's
law?
not
Donald
just
Trump
the counting of the
supposedly
ballots,
likes to
which, by the
downplay
way, which will
threats.
take forever. It'll take forever. You think November 3rd? You might not have, I guess at a certain point it goes to Congress. You know, at a certain point it goes to Congress. You know that. This is a disgrace. This is being done on purpose. They know it's no good. They know it's going to be fraudulent. It's going to be fraud
They
all
don't know
over the
what's gonna
place.
be- it's
Who's
not
getting
good
the
at all.
ballots? Who's sending the ballots?
Absentee
They have
balloting
people
is
saying you don't
perfectly
need a
legitimate and
verified
legal.
signature. This is a serious threat to our democracy. And the Democrats know that. All we're asking, if you solicit the ballot, you go through a process. You ask for a ballot because you can't be there for a
You
large
can't be
number
there
of
because
reasons.
you're afraid you're
For
going to get
whatever
sick.
I'm doing it
That's what
myself.
should be a legitimate
I won't
reason
be
to
able to
cast
be in
an absentee
Florida.
ballot.
You
My wife
solicit
is
and they send it
immunocompromised.
back.
She has a
You
condition
do it
that
and you
where
send
she
it
takes
back.
some
That's a
medicine
process
where
that
she
you
makes
go
her much
through,
more likely
and
to
it's
be,
pretty
to be
secure.
vulnerable to
I use
disease.
the word
And
pretty
right
secure.
now
I
we
guess
can't vote by
nothing's
absentee
foolproof.
ballot in Louisiana
What's
because
pretty close
of
to
you
what
people.
the most foolproof thing, the thing that
What do you mean,
really
you people?
works, is you go to the ballot box. It's going to be very safe. I think
It's
by
not
that
safe.
time,
The
COVID
people are
will be even lower.
immunocompromised.
It's going to be very low. It's going to be a very safe process. We did it during World War I. We did it during World War II. The biggest threat to this election is these unsolicited ballots sent out by the millions, controlled by governors, a political person, very political, but far beyond being governor, where they tried to stop you from making a speech unsuccessfully, but we had to move around a lot, had to move quickly. So this same guy that tried to stop you from making free speech outside, not inside, outside, they forced us inside because of what they did, but outside, This is the
No one
guy that's
forced you inside.
controlling
No one
ballots.
forced you to have
Then you
rallies
look at
and super spreader
Pennsylvania,
events.
you look at
You
other
killed
places.
Herman Cain.
It is a big threat. And as far as China is concerned, and Russia, and they say North Korea, they say Iran, they say places. Who knows? Who knows? But they say all these different places.
Didn't he call for like
make
the OAN
forgeries of
person
these
like
ballots.
5
They
minutes
can do
ago?
things that
And he's been
will
rambling
blow
for the
your
last
mind.
5 minutes about this
And the
crap.
Democrats know it's wrong. They know it's going to end up being a disaster. Just take a look at what's happened. Take
Poor
a look at what's
OAN
happened
person's
over the
not gonna
last
get
year
called
with
on
the
because
same
he
kind of thing,
got
except
caught on
in a very
on
small
election
setting,
fraud.
with very few ballots going out. So that's much easier. Not 53 to 80 million going out. A very small number. And you know what's happened? Fraud like you've never seen. Missing ballots.
Election fraud.
Ballots that
Fraud
never showed
of
up.
frog.
Ballots with bad signatures. Ballots with no signatures. And in the case of
And then
Nevada,
they're
they
not
don't even want
counted because you have
verification
to
of the
send in your absentee
signature.
ballot properly.
It's a disgrace. Now, the hope for our nation is it's before judges. In Pennsylvania, it's before judges. In Nevada, it's before judges. In other places, it's before federal judges. And hopefully they'll do what they did the other day in Pennsylvania, where we had a great victory. Open up your state. It's unconstitutional to close it. Because what they were doing is closing it. And they're closing it for political reasons.
It's not for political
It'll
reasons.
open
Health
on
reasons.
November
Health
4th.
shouldn't be
It'll
political.
open up right after the
You've
election.
made health a
But
political
they want
issue.
people to,
You've made
they want our
science
numbers to
a
be as bad as
political
possible.
issue.
But the problem is our numbers are so good, with or without various states opening up, with or without. But we had a big legal victory,
have
as you know, 3 days ago.
25%
A federal
of the
judge
deaths-
told them to open up their state. It's unconstitutional what you're doing.
Cases,
That's in
one
the
of the
case of
two,
Pennsylvania.
with 4%
Now
of
the
the
big
world's
cases
population.
are going to be the cases on these unsolicited
You were responsible
ballots,
for tens
and
of
we'll
thousands
see what
of
happens.
deaths
Right.
in
OAN,
America.
please.
Oh, yeah.
On the grounds
Come in.
that the Chinese Communist Party has been using slave labor in Xinjiang, your administration has imposed a limited ban on certain products coming out of Xinjiang, stopping short of a full region ban. What is your response to the Chinese Communist Party's spokespeople who are saying that this is
Again,
an
the
outright
OAN
lie,
person
Xinjiang
is
does not
not
have
wearing a
forced labor?
mask.
And number two, have allies expressed interest in standing with this administration in taking action against forced labor
Yeah.
imposed by the Communist
We don't
Party?
want to see that. We've been very strong on that. We're getting reports in over the next 2-3 days. We'll know very accurately what the story is, and we'll then take action, one way or the other.
Yes, I just wanted to ask you about the WTO's recent ruling against the United States over $200 billion in tariffs on China. Should the U.S. Remain part of the WTO?
Well, I have real questions about it. Look, the U.S. we
I'm
just
going to
won a
pull out of
$7.5
everything that we've
billion
ever done
lawsuit,
because
which nobody used
if I
to
know
sue
anything
before
about
I came
anything,
along.
it's
You know,
about
they
pulling
used to
out,
lose them every single time.
except
Now
for a
they
couple
haven't
of
been losing them.
times.
But we're getting reports on the WTO. It's not good. Never been good to us. The WTO, as far as I'm concerned, was created to suck money and jobs out of the United States to the benefit of China and other countries. That's what my opinion is. Whether it was created or it just turned out to be that way. But the World Trade Organization has been not good for the United States. It's been good for everybody else, but it's not been good. It was a method, in my opinion, of taking advantage of the United States. So we're looking into what happened, and we'll get back to you fast.
President,
Two questions. One, you said you spoke with Dr. Redfield earlier, and you said that he made a mistake.
I think he made a mistake. Yeah,
But-
I didn't go into any great depth. I was very surprised to hear it. It doesn't really matter. Here's what does matter. We're all set to distribute immediately. As soon as that vaccine comes out that's safe and good and works, whether it's Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, or anybody else, we are ready to distribute it very rapidly, as Scott said.
But it has to be
and as our
produced.
team knows, and they're ready.
You
And that
think
could
it's going to be
on-
done
it
immediately?
could be
Your
in
own
October,
person just
sometime
said the
in
end of
October
quarter
or
one.
November.
And
I don't
that,
think it's going to be much
according
later
to
than
many
that.
experts, is
But I
suspect.
think it could be sometime in October. We're ready to move, and it'll be a very full distribution.
You all had the call, and you said that you told him that he had made a mistake. What was his response?
No, I
And did
didn't
he
tell him
apologize?
anything. I said, what happened? And I got the impression that he didn't realize he said what he might have said.
think
I
the
didn't
thing
see
he said
him
is
say
not
it.
the thing that he
But
thinks
if
he
that's
said.
what he said, it's a mistake, because here's, sir, ready? We're ready to distribute immediately to a vast section of our country and then
They have to
beyond.
be produced,
because
and
we
they
want to
have
help
to be
other countries
safe.
also. But we're ready to distribute immediately.
But the timeline that he gave, saying that it wouldn't be ready for the general public until the middle of next year, sounds very like the one that you kind of just offered.
No, I said that there'll be 700 million doses by end of Q1, and everyone in high risk will have it sometime, no later than January.
Yeah, he was talking, he
That's what
said
I
the
said.
general public for
No,
next
well,
year.
we are
He wasn't
focused,
talking about high risk
as you
or
know,
healthcare
Caitlin, we're
workers.
focused on high risk, but we're gonna focus also on general public.
We're
very
focused on
much,
high
but
risk,
we
but
are-
we're then you're
our
not
immediate
focused.
aim
You can't focus
is
on
elderly
everybody.
people, and especially elderly people with heart,
Such a
diabetes problems.
dumbass.
But we will have it, we're not looking at a small distribution program. We're looking at distributing to the whole United States with an immediate focus of the elderly. Now, under no circumstance will it be as late as the doctor said, but I think that frankly, if he analyzes, they hit him with that question, he said that we are ready at a much faster level than what he said. We will have rapid distribution. We're set up, our military and others are set up to do it. And we think it could even start taking place in October, but certainly during
I
November,
got a new
December
follower
would
on
be the latest.
Twitter.
Because
Rose,
based on
and then
what
a
we're
bunch of
hearing,
numbers. First name, bunch of numbers.
results are, based on what I'm hearing, results are very good. So
Okay,
we'll
my
see what
last
happens.
question is, you told Bob Woodward, the problem with a vaccine is a vaccine will take 13 to 14 months once you have it because you have to test a vaccine. So do you want to
Well,
clarify?
what I was saying to him, no, but that was a long time ago when I said that. We weren't set up at that time. Well, how many months ago? When was the statement made?
He doesn't say in the
You know,
book
his
when it
book is
was
sort of
made.
obsolete
But
because
you
the book
listed
comes out.
interviewing you in
By the way, I read the book last night very rapidly because it was very boring. I read it, and if you see what I said a lot of really good things. I mean, for the most part, people like to turn it around, but I said really good things in that book. And as an example, he doesn't cover, I told him what we're doing in the Middle East, and we're doing it in an entirely different way, and that's not covered in his book. The whole thing isn't covered in his book. And one thing I will say, and I respect the press for this one, which was interesting, almost universally we've been praised for the deal that we made yesterday with Israel and
But
with
you've had deals.
two
There's been
very
deals with this
important
country, with
countries
Egypt,
in the Middle East.
and
UAE
it has
in
nothing,
particular,
that
where
did nothing
it's a
to
very
help the issues
powerful
between
group. It's a
Israelis
warrior
and
country.
Palestinians.
It's led by a
So
great
the idea
warrior
that these
and
two
a
deals are
man
going to
who's
somehow
highly
magically make
respected.
the
And,
whole
if you take a
Israeli-Palestinian
look
issue
at,
go away
that
when
and
these countries
Bahrain
weren't even at war in
and
Israel to
Israel
begin
making
with
a deal,
is
and I will tell you,
absurd.
we have at
I'm
least
gonna
4 or
make peace
5 others
between
that want to come in. They would have come
South
in
Africa
yesterday. I
and
talked to 2 of them
France.
yesterday, and they're ready to trot. And
When's the
I
last
think you're
time
gonna
South
have
Africa
a
and
whole
France were at
level
war?
of peace without blood all over the sand. Nobody was shot. Nobody was killed. We killed hundreds of thousands of people in the Middle East. It's been. I always say it's the bloodiest sand anywhere in the world, and it didn't have to be that way. The single worst decision our country ever made was to go into the Middle East. Not only the millions of people killed, and I include people on both sides. Some people say, "Oh, you shouldn't say that." I said, "I'll say it," on both sides. Such a horrible thing was done. Such a horrible mistake was made. We're doing this a different way. So we have those 2 countries. We have at least 5 that we're negotiating with right now, and you can only negotiate with so many. I think they're all going to come in. I think ultimately the Palestinians are going to come in. These are all the people that are funding them. I stopped funding the Palestinians fairly early on because they were saying bad things about our country. I said, we're giving them $750 million a year, and they're saying all bad things about our country. So I stopped funding them very early on. But they get funded by other very rich countries. To them, it's like a speck. It's nothing. But they get funded, and but I think now that these countries, these very rich countries, are part of the deal, and you'll see over the next fairly short period of time, other countries will come in. I think Saudi Arabia ultimately will come in too. I think getting Saudi Arabia will be great, but I think Saudi Arabia, that's my feeling. It's not based on knowledge other than a couple of conversations I had with the king. But Saudi Arabia, I think, will be coming in too. And you'll end up with peace in the Middle East, and nobody thought it could be done, and nobody thought it could be done this way. I went to some very smart people. I went to some people in the Middle East, and they said, you'll never be able to do it. It's not possible to make peace. Well, now they're saying to me, nobody ever thought of doing this. They all thought you make the deal first with the Palestinians. It had to be that way. And I will say the resistance
still
was
haven't
some
made a deal with
countries didn't want to do
Palestinians,
it
so
unless the
you can't appease
Palestinians
the
were
Middle
there
East without
first.
a
That
deal
was
with
just a psychological thing more than anything
and
else.
there's
but they
nothing to
were
help
wrong.
that. And
Those
some
the
people have suggested that it might even hurt.
Our great representatives
take
that have been
away
doing this for 35 years that were telling me how to do it.
leverage.
But
Because
they
you
all
give away
failed. They were in
things in
Clinton's
your
administration,
art of the
they were in
deal
Bush, they were in
person that you
Obama.
are.
All these great,
The
brilliant
art of the
people.
deal. I am
they were all
the
telling me
master
how
of
to
the
do
art
it,
of
and I
the
said,
deal, the
"They're
art of the
wrong." And
con.
I guess I was right.
Con
And when
man.
you see, let me just, well, let's finish this. When you see the countries that will be coming, a very short period of time, not talking in a long period of
What
time.
countries?
All of the
Ask.
countries
I'm
that
sure
will be
someone's
coming
gonna
in,
ask.
just
Well,
like
I
you
can't
saw
say that.
Bahrain yesterday.
I can't
and,
say what countries there are.
UAE and I can think of, I mean, at least 5 that are going to be quick and easy. Others will be quick and easy also once the 5 come in. So you're going to have something. You're going to have peace in the Middle East, and we want to get out. You know, we want to. Our soldiers are largely coming home. I said the endless wars, the ridiculous endless wars.
What's going on with Israel
And I will
has
say
nothing
this,
to do
if I
really
didn't
with
withdraw our
Afghanistan.
country from that horrible
It's-
Iran nuclear deal, that horrible,
Why
stupid
do people
deal,
think that this
where
person has
President
what it takes to
Obama
be
paid
president?
$150
It's
billion
ridiculous.
for nothing and gave $1.8
Ridiculous.
billion in cash. $1.8 billion. You know what that is? $1.8 billion in cash. That's more impressive than the $150 billion paid normally. But he gave all this money, all of these chips that we had. We had these chips, and he gave them all away, and we got nothing. And you know, it was a short-term deal. It would be practically expiring now. It would practically, it starts to expire actually right now, but it would practically be, and there is no way we will let Iran
There are
have a
many people
nuclear
out here
weapon.
saying that
Just
they wish
remember
you
that.
would
There's no way
expire
that's gonna
now.
happen.
Are you reversing this statement? You never answered the statement. I'll just let you go for this, but do you want to reverse what you told Woodward about the 13 to 14 month timeline for a vaccine?
Well, the vaccine at the time, I thought it might take that period of time, but we've stepped it up very substantially. And now, I mean, I'm just telling you, this is just what it is. We've been able to step it up very, very rapidly. I never thought we could have a vaccine as quickly as we did, but I freed it up. I freed
don't
up
have
the
it yet.
FDA.
You don't know
Dr.
when it's gonna
Hahn's
be
done a
out.
great
You
job,
don't know.
and they're ready to approve something when they come in. The other thing that's happening that's very different is you look at a company like Pfizer, a great company, really one of the great companies of
Pfizer.
the world, Johnson & Johnson, they're all great companies. They're doing a lot of testing at a very rapid rate that nobody's ever seen anything like it. You know, they're in the third level of trial.
Third level
And
of trial.
I think that you're going to see things that are amazing. When I made statements like that, that's an old statement. When I made statements like that, I had no idea that we could produce as well as we're producing. But only because of what I've done with the FDA and other things can we come up
What have you
with
done to
numbers
the
like that.
FDA?
We're lucky that we don't have to, because that was considered fast. If this were an administration from the past, and I think I can say far beyond Obama, if it was other administrations also, you wouldn't have a vaccine for 2.5, 3 years.
We
And
had
we're
a
gonna have
vaccine in
within,
6 months
at most,
for
a couple of months.
H1N1.
Okay? John?
Mr. President, if I could ask you about coronavirus relief, do you support the Problem Solvers Caucus proposal that was put forward? Are you comfortable
Yeah,
with the $500
something
billion
like that.
for the states?
Something like that, yeah. I like the larger amount. I've said that, you know. Some of the Republicans disagree, but I think I can convince them to go along with it, because I like the larger number.
I think
I
they
wanna
did the
see
huge.
people get money. I want to see, it wasn't their fault that this happened. It was China's fault, you know? People say, oh, maybe you shouldn't say that. That's not nice. It was China's fault. So I'd like to see the larger number. Yeah, I would like to see it. There are some things I disagree with, but I'm sure they can be negotiating. Now, I heard Nancy Pelosi said she doesn't want to leave until we have an agreement. She's come a long way. That's great. If she said that, she's come a long way. I
You've come a
agree with
long
her.
way,
We
baby.
should have an agreement. People should be helped, and they should be helped as rapidly as possible. And I think it's going to happen. I think it's very important. So the problem solvers came up with, it's a group of people in Congress, as you know them all, I know them all. They're very good people. I guess you'd consider them dead center. But in many cases, they're not. They're left, they're right, but they came up with this idea. And I think they're well on their way to suggesting some pretty good things. Yeah.
So in terms of things
I agree with a lot of it.
In terms of things that you don't agree, are you comfortable with the $500 billion?
I think the things I don't agree, we can probably negotiate. But I think we've made some progress over the last week, and I think it was positive that they came out with that report.
Just to button this up, would you endorse that proposal?
Well, not that a proposal, but we're getting closer. We're getting closer. I do like a lot of money getting sent to people that really were hurt unnecessarily by China because they could have stopped it. They stopped it from going into their country. They could have stopped it from coming to our country and from going to Europe and from going to the rest of the world, 188 different countries from all over the world, please.
Mr. President, the director of the CDC also testified today that a mask, in his estimation, is,
The mask,
is guaranteed to protect the American public more from the coronavirus than a vaccine. You
right, he
have,
did
as
say that.
detailed, poured a lot of resources into a vaccine development. Why not devote your
And to
energy...
masks.
Why not devote your energy now
Yeah.
to a campaign to have all Americans wear a mask, something that, if more effective
Good
than
question.
a vaccine,
I
would
love
also
that
help schools
question.
and the economy?
Okay, number one, it's not more effective by any means than a vaccine, and I called him about that. Those were the two things I discussed with him. And I believe that if you ask him, he would probably say that he didn't understand the question because I said to him, I asked him those two questions, the one question which we covered and the mask question.
But he wants you to wear a mask. So
and I
why
was
don't you
inaccurately
put a
covered, 'cause I was
campaign
on
that
with
says
George last
everyone
night,
should wear a
George
mask? It's
Stephanopoulos.
patriotic.
And
Tell your
I
supporters to wear
enjoyed it.
MAGA
I think
masks.
People enjoyed it. I got, a lot of people said very good things about the show. I hope they did well, but they said a lot of good things about the show, but they always cut my sentences off. They cut it off. On masks, masks have problems too. And I talked about the masks have to be handled very gently,
But
very
they
carefully.
still do it. If everyone masked, you would
I
see
see
less
that
spread.
in restaurants
Less
there are
spread
people
means
with
less
masks
deaths.
and they're playing
You
around with their
downplayed
mask
it.
and they have it.
Yeah,
Their
people
fingers are in their
handle
mask
their
and then they're
mask
serving
wrong all
with
the time,
plates. I
but
mean, I
still
think there's a
wearing
lot of
masks- more people
problems with
wearing
masks.
masks means more
No,
people are gonna be
vaccine is
effectively
much
wearing
more
masks.
effective than the masks. And if we get the vaccine, we have added to the fact that our numbers are going way down. You see the numbers. I'm just reading you statistics that are from wherever they get them, but they're very highly qualified statistics. But no, the mask is not as important as the vaccine. The mask
masks are
perhaps
important.
helps. Don't forget, a lot
Masks
of
are
people didn't
vital
like
now
the
'cause
concept
there's
of
no
masks
vaccine.
initially. Dr. Fauci didn't like them, and a lot of people didn't. And I'm not knocking anybody because I understand both sides of the argument. But when I called up Robert today, I said to him, "What's with the mask?" He said, I think I answered that question incorrectly. I think
You're a
maybe he
liar.
had
I don't believe
misunderstood
that
it.
for
I
a
mean,
second.
you have two questions. Maybe he misunderstood both
I
of
don't
them.
believe that for a
But
second that
the
that phone call
answer
took
to the one
place.
is it's going to be a much faster distribution than he said. Maybe he's not aware of the distribution process. It's not really his thing as much as it would be, let's say, mine. But the distribution is going to be much faster. As far as the mask is concerned, I hope that the vaccine is going to be a lot more beneficial than the masks because people have used the masks. But when I looked at that chart that we put up, if you look, we're right. If you do the good job, they had, I guess, 240,000. But if you do the good, if it worked out well, now look, one death is too much. One death is too much. Should have never happened. But the lower level was at that 240,000, between 100 and something and 240,000. As far as the mask is concerned, he made a mistake.
But on the masks, I mean, perhaps they are part of the role for the decrease in cases because they are effective, as you just said. So I know you've wanted.
No, they may be effective.
Sure.
And I wear them when I'm in a hospital or when I'm in a setting with a lot
My
of...
question is, why not wear it more often, or have the White House staff wear it more often to set an
Thank
example
you.
for the country?
Well, I'm tested, and I'm sometimes surprised
That's
when
not
I
the
see somebody
point.
sitting and, like with Joe, Joe feels very safe in a mask. I don't know, maybe he doesn't want to expose his face. I don't know what's going on. He'll be way away from people. Nowhere near people.
This is why
There'll be
people won't
nobody
wear
with him.
masks
He doesn't
because
draw
you are
any crowds.
irresponsibly
So have circles, these big
downplaying the
circles. They'll be
importance
way far away.
of mask
There's no
wearing.
reason for him to have masks on. We get tested. I'm tested. I have people tested. When people come into the Oval Office, it's like a big deal. No matter who they are, they're heads of countries. They all get tested. So I'm in sort of a different
Ridiculous.
position. And maybe if I wasn't in that position, I'd be wearing it more. But I've worn masks, and especially I like to wear them when I'm in hospital. Not for me so much as for other people. Okay? Thanks. Yeah.
Mr. President, can I just ask you
I have
about...
two questions, Mr. President.
Hang on.
One for
This is
Dr.
why people are
Atlas.
dying, because you
Dr.
are
Atlas,
downplaying
mentioned,
the importance
minorities
of
would
masks.
be the first focus of the distribution. How would that exactly work in practice when it's being distributed specifically to minorities? And then secondly, for you,
Well, he
Mr.
didn't say minorities. He says
Well, he
minorities
said the
and
focus-
senior citizens, yeah.
Oh, sure. But can you talk us through a bit more on the focus on distributing to minorities and how that would work? And then for you, Mr. President, you mentioned the drop in the poverty rate. Specifically, we noticed at Just the News that the poverty rate for African Americans hit historic lows, that the household wealth increased historically for African Americans. what was driving that increase in wealth for African Americans? And now in 2020, with the coronavirus, with unemployment spiking, what would be your plan for the second
Yeah.
term to improve lives for
Well, I'll
African
go
Americans?
first because of your question. I appreciate your
Just
tremendous
what-
drop in
what-
poverty
what
for
hack
all
journalist is
people
this?
in our
Again,
nation, but
doing a
in
chin
particular
mask.
for African Americans. And that statistic came in, and it's because the African American community, the black community, has had the lowest, the best employment
waiting for
numbers
him to
that we've
say,
ever
"The
had, both
blacks."
employment and unemployment, depending on how you want to define it. But we've had the best employment numbers we've ever had. Now, we had the greatest employment in the country ever, almost 160 million. We were just 6 months ago. And I'm very proud of the numbers. African Americans, Hispanic Americans, they had the best numbers they've ever had by far, both employment and unemployment, depending on definition. Thank you very much for that question. Scott, do you want to answer that?
To clarify, I said that the first prioritization is the high-risk people and frontline healthcare workers. But just to reiterate what I said, there are 51,000 outlets for distribution, for vaccination. And there's over 14,000 federally qualified health centers that are particularly targeted to minority and low-income areas. So that's a focus. I want to point out two other things. We're also prioritizing testing to historically black colleges and universities. And we're in the process of getting that finalized because we know that there's higher morbidity in certain ethnic groups. And the last thing I would say is
Because of
it's
comorbidities.
particularly heinous and egregious abuse of the media to instill fear into people about taking a vaccine, because there is no shortcut here. Everything is safe, everything is effective.
What they said was they
And
don't
for
trust
people who
Trump.
are particularly an influence
I don't trust
on
Trump. I
minority
might trust
communities to
Fauci,
instill fear
maybe,
and doubt
because
is
Fauci has.
particularly,
I think Fauci, if he believed that the
outrageous
vaccine wasn't
abuse
safe,
of public
that
policy
he would
and
not
of leadership.
do. I don't think
These
that
are
he would
people that have
recommend
higher
it.
risk. And so I implore
Maybe.
everyone who's in a high-risk category
Maybe.
that when we get a safe, effective vaccine, they should take the vaccine.
I will say this is a phenomenon that only happened when they realized that we may very well have the vaccine prior to a certain very important date,
For some
namely
reason, we
November
are
3rd. Once they heard that,
having
the
a poor
Democrats started,
stream.
just to show you how bad
But my thing is not
the intention
showing
is,
that
they
I'm not
started
having that
knocking
many
the
drop
vaccine.
frames.
Had
So
nothing
what
to
the
do with
heck's
the
going on? I
vaccine.
don't
It was
know.
totally made up. It's all disinformation. Just like they put an ad in about football, just like they put, with respect to me, I'm the one that got football back. And I was always against them going out. It was ridiculous, that Big Ten. And now hopefully Pac-10 goes back. And I say that just like
You are
even
irresponsibly
worse,
forced
they
to
put out a
encouraging
totally
people to go back
fake
to
ad, totally made
doing
up stories,
things
a
that,
made up story
again,
by
are
a
going to cause
third-rate
more people.
magazine.
Because again, you're
where the
downplaying everything.
Head
You're a
guy, I
down
guess,
player.
the head
You're not
person.
just a
I have no
sugarcoater.
idea
You're
who
not
he
just
is. I
giving
don't know
everybody
him.
diabetes
But he's
with all the
friends with
sugarcoating.
Obama and
You're
Clinton.
downplaying and
So they
causing
made up
tens
this
of
horrible
thousands
story,
of
and then they
extra
did
deaths
ads.
than
Well, they made
would
up
have
this
had to
story
have
too.
died
This
had
story
we had somebody
is very simple.
competent
They started
in charge
knocking the
of the White
vaccine
House.
as soon as they heard that this actually may come out prior to election. Now, it may or may not, but it'll be within a matter of weeks. It'll be within a matter of weeks from November. It's
You are
ready to
so
go, and it's
desperate
ready
for
to,
that to come
for
out.
massive
Again, you don't
distribution
care about
to
people's lives.
everybody,
If
with
it-
a focus again
you
on
would rush it
seniors. And I
to
will
come out
say
beforehand,
also
even
the
if it meant less
historically black colleges and universities, we are doing, at my suggestion, because they have had a difficult problem there, we are doing more testing there and finer testing. We have our great apparatus there. But when you look at what we've done on testing in terms of the technology and the amount, it's been really amazing. In fact, I think we're going to crack 100 million tests very soon in the very near future. We're going to be cracking 100 million tests. Now, what that does do is it shows up more cases. If we didn't test, we wouldn't have cases. We have
Oh,
no
here
cases.
with
They
this
don't test, they
crap.
don't have cases. And then
You
they
still
say,
would
oh,
have
the United
cases.
States.
You just wouldn't know about them.
But we're proud of it because it shows where there may be a problem.
You
And it
didn't
helps
test enough
people.
early
But we're
on.
doing tremendous testing at the historically black colleges and universities, and that was a suggestion I made, and I think it's a good suggestion. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. The core of Vice President Biden's argument is that you don't trust the scientists, you don't listen to them. And here up on the podium today, you're twice contradicting the director of your own
Yep.
CDC on the science who testified before Congress today.
No, he's contradicting
the
himself.
American people-
I think he misunderstood the questions.
Well, he was testifying on
You know what I
why
think?
should
I
the
think he
American people-
misunderstood. I told you, I don't have to go through this. I think he misunderstood
should
the
have to go
questions,
through
but I'm
it
telling
because
you,
it's your
here's
job
the
to answer
bottom
the
line.
questions.
Distribution is going to be very rapid. He may not know that. Maybe he's not aware of that. And maybe he's not dealing with the military, et cetera, like I do. Distribution is going to be very rapid, and the vaccine is going to be very powerful. It's going to solve
How
a
do you
tremendous
know?
problem.
How
It's
do
going to
you
be very
know?
powerful.
The American people trust you on the pandemic when you're contradicting the head of the CDC and your
Because
own
of the great
administration.
job we've done. Because of the great things
Yeah.
we've done in other
You
fields also.
downplayed the
Because
threat
of the
of the
fact that
virus
we
and
created
tens of
ventilators, we
thousands of
built
more people
ventilators by
died.
the
You
thousands,
said
and
that
now we're
into
supplying to the
Woodward that
world
children would
because
get
of
it, they could
all
get it, it's
of the
dangerous for all
incredible work
ages,
we've done
while
for governors
publicly saying
who are on every
that
call
you
saying
did
this is
not-
incredible, this is great, this
that
is
children
good.
can't get it,
Sometimes they're
they're
not quite as
basically
friendly
immune.
at a news conference when you have people covering it. But we have done a phenomenal job on COVID-19, as they like to call it.
Bull.
I call it other
That is
things.
full
But we
of
have done a
malarkey.
phenomenal job.
All the
I get
malarkey
calls
right
from
there.
other people in other countries. They can't believe the job we've done.
They
And then
can't
they'll say,
believe
is there
you're an
any
idiot, how
way
much of
that
an
you can
idiot
get us
you are.
ventilators? I say, how many do you need? 1,000 ventilators. I said, we'll be able to take care of it. We're making thousands of ventilators, very complex, very expensive, very difficult thing to make. We're making thousands a month. The cupboard was bare when I got here. And I will tell you, our
because you have
distribution is going to
Republicans
be
in the
very
House that would
rapid
stop
and very-
everything that
it's
Obama
gonna
wanted to
be
do.
all-encompassing. We are
And the
going to have a
Senate.
focus on certain groups that have problems, senior citizens, et cetera. But it's a very powerful. It's going to be a very powerful distribution. It's going to cover everybody, and it's going to cover them rapidly. I don't know whether or not the doctor knows that, how much he covers, but I called him because I said, "Why did you say that long?" He wasn't that aware of it. And the other one was the mask. The vaccine is going to have tremendous power. It's going to be extremely strong. It's going to be extremely successful. We're not going to have a problem. And the mask may help, and I hope it helps, and I think it probably does. But again, the mask is a mixed bag. There are some people, professionals, Scott, you would know a lot of them, but there are some people that don't like the mask because of the touchiness and the touching, and then you're touching everything else. They feel that masks have problems. So anyway, go ahead in the back, please.
Mr. President, do you have confidence? Mr. President, do you have confidence in Dr. Redfield? Having
Yeah,
listened
I
to you-
do. I
well,
do.
you just said he
I
keeps
do.
getting answers wrong.
Well, he gave you some
misunderstands
answers.
questions.
He sort of, I think, maybe misunderstood a question, but we're beyond that now. We're really
We're
in
not beyond
final
it because
stages
your
of
administration is
vaccines.
giving out
We're getting ready to go
contradictory
phase 1
information.
on distribution, and I think it may come out even sooner than you think. I think the vaccine's going to be even better than people thought originally. I think people are going to be really surprised at the success of the vaccine. I think it's going to be a tremendous success. And we're fighting a very powerful party with a poor candidate, in my opinion, but we're fighting a very, very powerful party, and they're partners with the media, and because they're working together very closely. And they only started hitting on the vaccine. When they hit on the vaccine, they only hit on it when they realized that, wow, this is amazing. They may have it even before the election. All of a sudden, they didn't like the vaccine so much.
Because we understand what you're doing with
Go in the back,
it.
please.
It's available in October.
Mr. President, were
There's
you
no evidence that
informed
it'll be ready by
about
October.
positive coronavirus cases in the White House
I
today?
cannot hear you, I'm sorry.
Were you informed about coronavirus cases, positive cases in the White House today?
About today?
Yes,
On your staff.
on your staff.
Cases today, sir.
Yeah.
Say it.
On your staff.
Cases, there are reports of White House staff members testing positive.
Oh, I see.
coronavirus
About
today.
staff, you mean? About
Yes.
I heard about it this morning at a very small level. Yes, I heard about it this morning. I don't know. We can have a report to you if you feel it's necessary.
Yes.
But it's a small,
If it's necessary.
last night I heard about it for the first time. And it's a small number of cases. Maybe it's not even cases. Do you have any idea?
Maybe
if
it's not
there's-
even cases. What?
Yes, we're not gonna confirm the identities of the individuals.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yes, but, it did not affect the event and press was not around, the individual.
And it's not anybody that was near me.
Everything
From what I
else,
heard, a
but
very
it's
small
nobody
number.
that was
I think you
near
can
me,
probably
so
give the
I'm
number out
fine.
later on when you find out what it might be. One person? It was one person. Okay?
In Philadelphia.
It was one person. So not too much, not a person that I was associated with. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course, here we go. Not enough. Still leaving us with more answers, downplaying everything, making sure that, everything is not just sugar-coated but downplayed. It's ridiculous. This president irresponsibly put tens of thousands of lives in danger. And now he wants to say that he's great for the Latino community, even though the fact that we have ICE detention centers and we have multiple reports that there have been people who were given forced hysterectomies. It's genocide. It's genocidal. It's eugenics. These people want to talk about Margaret Sanger being a eugenicist. Eugenicism is happening right there in these concentration camps. And these pro-lifers won't say a peep because it's all, they love ICE, they love what, because they don't care about Latinx children. They don't care about black children. They'll pretend to care because they want to disrupt the votes coming from the black community, but they don't care. They won't care. They will bury their heads in the sand. And if you say that's a concentration camp, they'll ignore you even more. Because they don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to show themselves as being responsible for these tragedies. So the best way to do it is to ignore and deny that the tragedies are happening. They'll just say it's fake news, just like their dear leader, Donald Trump. Anyway, that's the end of this week's, or today's live stream of the press conference. I'm sure I'll have more coming up later, days and weeks to come. More video content, depending on whether or not TikTok survives. Some more TikTok content as well. Tune in tonight, 8 p.m. Central, blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan, and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central on blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan. Listen to the podcast. We'll be talking more about the forced sterilizations, the eugenics policies of this ICE, why we need to abolish ICE, and we'll be talking about some other issues pertaining to the election and COVID-19 as well, including a local Louisiana, New Orleans issue that I'm just absolutely, I shouldn't say that I'm shocked because, football is huge in Louisiana to begin with, and people are setting the wrong example for the kids. Anyway, tune in 8 p.m. Central every Wednesday night, blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan. If you like what I'm doing here, you want to support the podcast, support my YouTube channel, go to patreon.com/liberaldan, make a contribution there. Only 1,000 people donated $10 a month to the Patreon. I could do this for the rest of my life, as long as that maintained. I could make this my career. I could put more effort into this and not have to worry about anything else. Just a thought. I'll give you a shout out. I'll work with you. There's some other levels on the Patreon as well for working out some advertising as well. Just give it a shot. Anyway, thank you very much. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, like this video, share the channel with other people. Remember, mask up, stay socially distant, stay healthy.